It looked clean. It tasted normal. For the Marines, sailors, and families who lived here, it was just water. From the tap, in the coffee, in the baby's bottle. But for more than 30 years, the water at one of the proudest Marine Corps bases in America carried something no one told them about. And the people who could have stopped it stayed quiet for decades. This is the story of Camp Lejeune, and it may be the largest water contamination case in American history. Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune sits on the coast of North Carolina. Since 1941, it has trained generations of Marines, a place defined by discipline, sacrifice, and trust. Hundreds of thousands of service members passed through its gates. Many brought their families. They lived in on-base housing, drank from on-base water systems, and never had a reason to doubt that the country they served was keeping them safe. But beginning in the 1950s, two of the base's water systems were being slowly poisoned. The water was contaminated with industrial solvents, chemicals used as degreasers and in dry cleaning, along with benzene and vinyl chloride. The sources were a mix, leaking underground storage tanks, careless industrial disposal on base, and an off-base dry cleaner whose chemicals seeped into the groundwater. Year after year, those toxins flowed straight into the taps of family housing, barracks, schools, and the base hospital. When the water was finally tested in the early 1980s, some samples came back with contamination hundreds of times higher than safety limits would later allow. This wasn't a trace. It was among the most contaminated public water ever documented in the United States. And the scale is staggering. Federal health investigators estimate that as many as 1 million people may have been exposed between 1953 and 1987. Marines, sailors, civilian workers, spouses, and children. The human toll came in clusters that families couldn't explain. Cancers of the kidney, the liver, the bladder, leukemia, miscarriages, birth defects, children who got sick and didn't get better. One of them was a little girl named Janie Ensminger. She was conceived while her father, Marine Master Sergeant Jerry Ensminger, was stationed at Lejeune. At age 6, she was diagnosed with leukemia. At 9, she died. Her father, a drill instructor who had given his life to the Corps, spent the next 2 decades demanding to know why. Here's what turns a tragedy into a scandal. The contaminated wells were shut down in the mid-1980s, once testing confirmed what was in them. But many of the families who had been exposed say they weren't told, not clearly and not for years. People who had already left the base had no idea that the illnesses showing up in their lives might trace back to the water they drank in service. The fight became about a simple question: who knew and when? And why did it take so long for anyone to warn the people who trusted that base with their lives? It took relentless pressure from veterans and families to force action. In 2012, the Janie Ensminger Act was signed into law, finally providing health care to veterans and family members exposed to the water. It carried the name of the little girl whose father never stopped fighting. Then, in 2022, the Camp Lejeune Justice Act, passed as part of the Honoring Our PACT Act, opened the door for those harmed to finally seek accountability for what happened to them. The Department of Veterans Affairs now recognizes a list of conditions presumed to be connected to that water. And if this story sounds familiar, that's because it is. The forced anthrax vaccinations, Agent Orange, the burn pits, and now the water at Camp Lejeune. Again and again, the same pattern. The people who served were exposed to something dangerous, and then waited years, sometimes decades, for the truth and for the help they were promised. Camp Lejeune is not just a story about contamination. It's a story about trust and what's owed to the people who gave everything believing their country would protect them. The veterans and families who refused to stay silent are the reason any of this came to light at all. If you or someone you love was stationed at Camp Lejeune, tell us in the comments. Your story matters. And if you believe these stories deserve to be told, subscribe, because we're not done telling them. Next, we're going to the jungles of Vietnam and the chemical the government sprayed on its own troops.